when I was talking to these Democrats about Antifa and the riots, their attitude is sort of, well, there's always been riots and race riots in the United States throughout its entire history. So in some sense, it's really nothing out of the ordinary. And besides, Antifa doesn't really exist. And so I'd like you to address, if you would, both of those points. And I should point out, too, these were reasonable people making these points. These aren't radical leftists. These are people who are trying hard to pull the Democratic Party towards a moderate center and who are very suspicious of the radical leftists, especially the grip they have on the education system. So they're good faith players and still... And the other thing they said to me was that they believed it was intellectually dishonest to draw a parallel between Portland and Minneapolis and January 6th, making the case that what happened on January 6th was much, much worse, like in a category of its own. And they justified that by referring to the fact that it was a direct assault on the Capitol building, and that there was presidential ambivalence about bringing that to a halt. So that's a rat's nest. So, you want to wade in?
Yes, Professor. So I think, let's say for good faith engagement from the left, I completely understand why there would be this perception that Antifa is a myth or doesn't really exist, because that's the propaganda that the public is fed from the legacy media and broadcast and in print day in and day out, certainly since Trump was elected. It's an entirely different story, though, when you are on the ground, as I have been for years, and you see that militancy face to face. And when you see it, the organizational aspect of it is undeniable. I think the press, because of its compromised nature and generally being biased to the left, they have turned a blind eye to the evidence that shows that depending on where you are, there's an organizational structure to Antifa. And the statement that Biden said infamously at one of the debates last year, Antifa is an idea, that statement in itself is true. But it's not the complete statement. I think one way to explain it that people can understand perhaps more easily is it's analogous to the worldwide jihadist phenomenon, in that you can have people who are actual members of organizations like Boko Haram or IS or Al-Qaeda or any of these other jihadist groups, but you have people as well who are sympathetic to the ideology and act on it. And in that regard, I think you can think of the contemporary manifestations of Antifa in the United States, Canada, and in Western countries along the same lines.